Hello students, I welcome you all to Current Affair Lectures by Azad ICS Academy. Let us see the today's current affairs. The first important thing that we are going to do is to answer the question that we have discussed for yesterday. What does carbon intensity measure? As we have discussed, I told you there is a quite difference between the carbon intensity and the carbon footprint. Carbon footprint is talking about overall carbon, but carbon intensity is basically talking about a specific sector related output. So the correct answer would be C, that is the amount of carbon dioxide emitted relative to sector output. Okay, so that's the answer. Let us see the important topic for today, and that is nothing but it is talking about endogamy. So I'll first make you understand what is the meaning of endogamy here. And we'll see what are the issues when it comes to endogamy as well. Okay. Yeah. So today is 6th March. And the first important topic here is about endogamy. So the recent study by the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research Center of Cellular and Molecular Biology, okay, found that endogamy, marrying within the small community, is major cause for population-specific genetic diseases in India. So there is a institution, and this institution is telling that if there is marriage practice within a smaller community, and there are some communities which happens within the families as well, okay, which is primarily a cause of pollution or population-specific diseases. Researchers found out that the significant number of diseases causing genetic variants may of which were unique to a specific population. Either studies have also shown many population-specific hereditary diseases most often associated with novel genetic mutation. So here we have to understand that these researchers have also discovered many diseases causing genetic variants, some unique to specific groups. There are specific groups, and only those groups are suffering from these diseases and other groups are not suffering. And that is because the marriages are happening within that community itself. Okay. So impact of endogamy on population-specific diseases in India. So one of the key findings of this particular study has been shown the widespread prevalence of some kind of disease that is called as spondylitis, a typical or a type of arthritis that causes inflammation in the joint and the ligaments of the spine, is linked to HLA-B2704 risk LI, a genetic variant that increases a likelihood of developing a disease, said official released on Tuesday. So this is an example here. Anyways, what are the risk factors? Okay, the impact of endogamy and what are the risk factors that we have to understand here. We found that the higher incidence of this kind of diseases in Reddy community, who dwell in a specific geographical region of Andhra Pradesh. Okay, this is basically what has happened or seen in this case. Lead author explains that there are 281 high coverage whole exome sequence were analyzed from 4 anthropologically distinct populations. We examined several key factors such as extent of the interbreeding and novel genetic variants in population. We have also looked at some other makers that influence drug metabolism to understand why different drugs seems to work differently in different population. The reason is because the marriages are happening within itself. Now, how is it impacting? See, please understand that endogamy leads to higher prevalence of disease-causing genetic variants, some which are very unique to specific communities. So for example, this particular disease that is there, that is a joint pain, is seen in Reddy community itself. Okay. And many population-specific hereditary diseases in India are linked to novel genetic mutations due to interbreeding. Okay. So a study found out that this Reddy community is, facing these kind of issues because there is a small community within where they are trying to, have this kind of marriages. Drug response variability also. The drugs, some people, they take high dose of drugs and some people take very less dose of drugs depending on what kind of, community that they belong to. Okay. Need of genetic screening. Findings highlight that importance of genetic screenings, counseling, and personal medication to improve health outcomes. Research by CSIR and CCMB, the study of this particular cellular and biology emphasizes the impact of endogamy and genetic diseases and drug metabolism. So hence, what is the major step that we have to understand here? The study was a major step towards understanding the genetic underpinnings of India's unique genetic architecture. Okay, so here we need to understand the findings were published in the Journal of Genetics and Genome that was added. And here what we have to understand is it is going to play a very important role in effective diagnostic and strategies. So if we are able to, do a proper genetic screening, counseling, and clinical care for the communities that are vulnerable to various health conditions. This is something that we need to basically do because different communities are going to face different kinds of diseases, or they will be exposed to some kind of diseases which maybe other communities may not be exposed to, right? So the next important topic that we have is when the space or when debris from the space crash to the earth, who is responsible? See, we all know that the rockets are launched into the space, and a lot of space waste or the waste that is going from the earth is put in the space. Now, if that kind of space waste, if it comes to earth, then who is going to take responsibility? Despite being a critical issue in the space governance, space debris lack a universal accepted legal definition. Thus, legal dispute often hing to various or hing on whether a piece of debris qualifies as a specific object under a convention of internationally liberty liability for damage caused by the space object of 1972. So here we have to understand that, okay, why this is in news. We'll understand that this is a part of science and technology. On December 30, 2024, a 500 kg metal object, okay, fell in Kenya, identified as a space-bound rocket. So a 500 kg metal is falling in Kenya, and what have we identified it as? It is identified as what? It is identified as a metal or a space-bound rocket. Similar incident in US and Australia highlight the growing problems of space debris. So similar kind of things are not just happening in Kenya, it has also happened in Australia, it has also happened in USA. So these kind of things are not good because they are going to ultimately cause a lot of disasters at the end, right? There is no universally accepted legal definition for the space debris in the international treaties as well. So imagine going on your day by day with a heavy metal object suddenly crashes in front of you or your house. You and your neighbors are shocked and you rush out to check what has happened and struggle to make a sense of sight. A misshapen piece is a hot metal blackened by fire and shoot. It could, with a cloud of dust swirling around it. It isn't a scene of a sci-fi film. On December 30th, 2024, a metal object weighing 500 kgs fell in Kenya. Experts from Kenya Space Agency characterized it as a separation ring from the space-bound rocket. While J. McDowell, an astronaut known for cataloging space launches and objects in orbit, and some others were expressing skepticism that object was a part of a rocket. Similar incidents have happened in USA and Australia before have served repeated reminders for urgent problems of space debris. Space activity is becoming more brisk as countries are launching more rockets, satellites in the spacecraft. Falling debris also challenges the law that protects humans. The question of accountability looms largest. When debris crash to Earth, who is responsible and how to be or whom to be held accountable? So this is something that we need to understand, right? So as I've already mentioned that in Kenya this happened, and apart from this, and here they're just asking you to imagine what would happen if this kind of a space debris is falling in front of you, right? So space debris in law. Despite of a critical issue in the space governance, space debris lack a universal accepted, definition. We do not have a proper definition here. Okay, so this is something that is very not good. The UN Committee on Peaceful Use of Outer Space defines US debris as a non-functional man-made objects. So what is a space debris? A non-functional man-made objects that are present in the space. They are space debris. Okay, legal dispute focus on whether debris quantify as a space object under 1972 Liability Convention. In 1967, the Outer Space Treaty holds state responsible for all national space activities, including private entities. So the government is going to be held responsible for even the private entity launch as well. Okay, the challenges in the legal enforcement also. So this is not just technical, but the enforcement remain crucially challenged. Here, we need to understand, despite legal provisions, enforcement is difficult due to diplomatic negotiations and prolonged statement. Okay, so the fall of actual costs. After the Soviet satellite Cosmos 957 carrying a nuclear reactor crashed in Canada in 1978, Canada spent years negotiating with USSR and ultimately secured only $3 million as an estimate $6 million cleanup cost. The case underscored a gap between legal liability and practical enforcement, leaving effective parity vulnerable and inadequate resolutions. So here you can see that What has happened is that USSR has launched a satellite which is carrying a nuclear reactor, and that got crashed in Canada. And the negotiations, so the compensation that was given also was less, and the negotiations are not, up to the practical marks, you can say, right? Identifying the origin of debris at complexity, making liability enforcement challenging. Now, there is a risk of uncontrolled incidents also. Recent incidents include rocket fragment falling in Poland and massive rocket stage plunging into Pacific Ocean. Many older rockets lack control return mechanism, increasing the risk of debris falling unpredictably. A rapid expansion of satellite constellation, over 1 lakh satellite expected by 2030, will worsen the issue. So we are expecting that 1 lakh satellites will be there, and this is a very bad news. It is making the uh, situation more worse. Okay, so we need to have a stronger regulation. Current space regulation lack mandatory oversight. So you can see that there is nobody who is looking at it mandatorily. So hence we need to make sure that there's a mandatory oversight. Point number one, global agreements must enforce control returnees and impose penalties on non-compliant actors. If somebody who is not doing it properly, they need to get some kind of penalties so that they are able to work on this. Improve tracking system, right? Sustainable space practices such as reusable rockets. Okay. So these are things that we can do. See, space debris poses a serious risk. Okay. And vulnerability guidelines are insufficient. Strong global cooperation, enforceable laws, and accountability mechanisms are needed to prevent further incidents. So if you want to make sure that the such kind of incidents do not happen, a lot of people do not lose their property and life, what we need to do is we need to have a strong global cooperation, enforceable laws, and accountable mechanisms. So these are some of the things that we need to understand here, right? Now, let us see the question for today. Try to answer this question. What is the cause of population-specific disease in India as per the recent studies? So why we are having these kind of population-specific disease? We have already discussed this particular topic. This is one of the important topic for today. Try to answer this question. Please put in your comments in the comment section or answer in your comment section. If you have any suggestions that you want to give in, or you want to say or discuss anything, please put it in the comment section so that we can improvise ourselves. Thank you so much for your time.